Welcome everyone, Christine here with a discussion about the Empire in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. And specifically what I'm looking at here is a heavily modded campaign with Sigmar's Heirs mod. Though I guess I should have realized that I did have the true size mod enabled as well, because that's creating issues. Because there's a lot of unit variants over here in this specific mod for the Empire. See, the Empire is a very developed race in the lore. Like, lots of characters, lots of little interesting things that just don't exist in Warhammer 3. There's a lot of complexity, and really, you could make entire games worth of content from the actual Empire in Total War. Now, of course, ECA does view things differently. They do want that racial diversity with their DLCs. They do want to focus on various things, but really the Empire could really be the gift that keeps on giving. So what this mod does in a lot of ways, though not in all the ways, but what this mod does is add a good amount of that diversity. So for starters, you do have a lot of different unit recruitment choices. Specifically, you have your regular unit recruitment options, as you might expect, but you have regional variants. So if I look over here in the unit and spell browser, you can see that I have all kind of different versions of spearmen as example. So Averland spearmen, charge bonus, as an example, Crusader spearmen, yes, Expeditionary spearmen, indeed, Hockland spearmen. And this is not just like, oh, pure fluff. No, there are different kind of benefits, like base weapon damage from Middenheim, mass from Nordland, unit recruitment costs from Ostermark. And this applies to all these kind of units. Basically, a lot of these units do have different benefits dependent on the region you're recruiting them from. So that's great. It does apply to the state trooper. So think of things like spearmen, things like crossbowmen, handgunners, etc., etc. Not all of these units. So like Hockland long rifles are Hockland long rifles. Null Ironsides are Null Ironsides. Those kind of things. But then you get like Reichland handgunners. That is a good amount of variety. On top of that, you do have extra units added to this as well. But then you also have the Colleges of Magic system. So this is really supposed to represent the various colleges of magic that do exist in the lore. And this is obviously copying the Vampire Count system with their blood kisses. The way this works is you build mage recruitment buildings, and this gives you a resource called Imperial Mandate. And this Imperial Mandate allows you to unlock various things over here. So you can get ambush, battle reinforcement time, casualty replenishment, control, and corruption. And when you do get to, and this also gives you access to Wizard Lords. So what you have over here is you have your generals, you have your arch lectors, you have your master engineers, then you have Lord Magisters, which are unlocked through the Colleges of Magic. So over here I unlocked Free Lord of Life, Wizard Lords. Now, I'm not really a big fan of using Wizard Lords as army leaders. The reason is that when I'm leveling a Lord, I prefer to focus, on, combat skills, and I prefer to have a general that's a melee fighter, because I can get magic from a hero, and the Empire certainly has enough capability. I'd rather have the general of the army either being a really good buffer for the army, or helping in the campaign situation, or helping out in combat itself. Like melee combat specifically. That is, to me, more useful than having a mage lord. It is different if they're on a dragon, which the high elves do have, and if some spells are ridiculously powerful. But the people complained about the wizard lords, but personally, I think the master engineer is substantially better as an army general. Sure, he's not good in melee, but he's also ridiculously good because he buffs your army with, campaign movement range, ballistics calibration, stockpiles, and also casualty replenishment for war machines. But it really is the question of ballistics calibration, or you can use black powder, You can use black powder, discipline. Never mind the traits that you can, some of these traits that you can get for engineers over here, for master engineers, that can also be really good as well with regards to all of that. But you do, so while I'm not a big fan of the Wizard Lords, I am a big fan of the fact that each of these colleges of magic, when you do complete them, gives you a unique lord, which are supposed to represent the order patriarchs or matriarchs for the various schools of magic. I think life is really powerful, so in this case I went with Grunfeld. She gives me 15 growth in the local province, 10% casualty replenishment for army, Mother's Protection, life magic as you might expect, recruit rank for Jade Wizards. So there's all kinds of benefits over here that you can take advantage of. She also has wins of magic costs. She's actually better than some legendary lords. Like, this is the one thing I really like about this mod, is that you're not just playing with one legendary lord. You're playing with several, because this is basically a legendary lord, right? You get quest items over here, you know, that are awarded at various levels. You get a special skill line at the top. These certainly do feel like legendary lords. Maybe not the best legendary lords in the game, but still. You also start with Ludwig Schwarzhelm as a legendary hero from the very beginning. So you get Guardian, Immortal, special skill line over here. And once you do have your Galmaras quest battle as Karl Franz, this is a modded campaign that's pretty fast paced, but once you do have the Galmaras quest battle, well, Karl isn't using Galmaras here. His mod, you can use a sub mod that gives him Galmaras, but what he's using over here is the Runefang. The Reichland Runefang specifically, like that's what I suspect he's using over there. Or rather, he's using Beast Lair. I should give him Dragon Tooth, right? Because, you know, Electric Count of Reichland. But instead, what we have here is Valten. Valten is basically Sigmar. Like, Sigmar Reborn. He got killed before he could gain his full power, but that's essentially it. So what's really interesting from my perspective with Valten is he starts as a legendary hero. And you have an upgrade path. Basically, you have Champion of Sigmar, Chosen of Sigmar, into Exalted of Sigmar. So you got the special skill line. He's basically a warrior priest. I'm not sure that's necessarily appropriate. But you get Diplomatic Relations, Corruptions, Ward Save minus 10% when fighting Skaven, because, of course. But then you get a bunch of different benefits for that. And as you level him up, so in this case, I'm just going to resolve this battle. Let's return it to Midland. Okay, well and good. He becomes a legendary hero. And this is a legendary lord. This is freaking amazing. Because it could create so much more potential. Like, if I'm I'm not sure I would necessarily agree with this sentiment in a, say, Valten campaign, if they ever were to do that for a DLC. But maybe if they did a Boris Todbringer campaign, you know, as a paid DLC, maybe, or a Luthor Huss paid DLC, or the Cult of Ulrich DLC, paid DLC over there, and you'd have Valten as a starting legendary hero, and then he could become a legendary lord. That would be really, really freaking awesome. I feel, at the very least, on that subject, because it would give you a lot of different benefits. Now, I'm not sure I would care so much about, you know, using flagellants, right? Upkeep for flagellants, Grand Soul Fire, sure. There are absolutely benefits in all of this, in using all of this. But you get a legendary hero who starts based on his own. Then he has his quest to gain ranks. Maybe that could be handled interesting, but then you get Galmaras, and he's still vulnerable to Skaven rep. But he does get armor, 10% ward save over there for armor. Just a bit of a problem against Skaven, right? You know, that's because the Skaven basically, in Storm of Chaos, they killed Valten. He's also really strong as a duelist, so he has the Hunter of Champions skill right here. And this, again, is just a freaking phenomenal system. As far as I personally see it right here. with regards to the Empire. It does create possibilities that otherwise it creates a more interesting campaign dynamic. Now, one of the things I do dislike about it is that to get Fyodor Bruckner, you do need basically Wisland. Makes sense, I suppose, but it's like you need a specific stables in Wisland, because all these units are recruited from unique buildings, unique regional buildings. So you get the Upper Reich livery, and you need the Wisland livery. So you need to confederate Wisland before you're able to get your hands on that. So that's not especially great, but hey, right? It's like something you can work with as a player right here. But there's more. Like there is more stuff than just that with regards to all of this. Just transferring all these units right here. Got some movement range. Let's go use it. There's also a lot of new buildings, different things. One of the things I do dislike is like the Witch Hunter from the tavern. I feel in some ways this mod could really use more updates right here. Because you look at, I mean, you do have your traditional, right, recruitment. But I just don't see why, you'd have it from the tavern when you can, just get the regular vanilla building. Like, I think some of the stuff does still, need some updates as far as I see it, like, at least with some of the stuff. So, it's not fully finished, does need some polishing up, but what is on offer over here is freaking phenomenal to the game. Like, really adds variety. There's a lot of things that you unlock, lots of these small variety things that wouldn't necessarily fit within a DLC, but this is what makes the Empire in the lore, as I see it. Like, you get the Karazhan Core Embassy, for instance, work in progress right there, right? As an example, because you do have Imperial Dwarves in the lore. It's all these small little details in the lore that really add up to make the Empire, again, feel like the freaking Empire. And I think that is something that people shouldn't ignore about them. As for things like, Huntsmaster, well, you do have them. You can gain them by building the Emperor Karl Franz bridge, for instance, in Altdorf, and unlock them right here. So, hero recruitment, Huntsmaster. That is a hero, but there's also, still a way to get them as a general. I'm not quite sure exactly what it is, though. But it's all these small things. But when you put them all together, you do get some very, very unique experiences when you're playing an Imperial campaign. And a lot of regional variety as opposed to playing a faction in the game and just kind of end up feeling at one point everything is samey. It's small differences, I get it, but things like color schemes or just like a small effect that adds just a bit of variety is the thing that does add to the game as far as I personally see it. On top of that, we also have Mordheim. Who doesn't love Mordheim? It is a great place. Actually, it starts infested by Chaos, Skaven, the Undead, and you actually have to spawn rogue armies, massive rogue armies, before you can properly develop the settlement, because otherwise it's going to be ridiculously expensive and ridiculously time-consuming. Like, think of 20 turns development. But once you do that, it's regular development, all well and good. And you get the ability of recruiting the Sisters of Sigmar. So the Sisters of Sigmar are heavily armored infantry with armor-piercing damage and a bonus versus infantry. There's also some regiments right now, and you can recruit like the Maidens of Sigmar over here, who have good amount of armor, bronze shields. I mean, basically, you have units that are heavily armored, and then you also have the Sisters of Faith and Chastity. So basically, if you're looking at Flagellants, who, by the way, you can recruit from local levied forces. So you have Free Company, Militia, and Flagellants, which can be recruited like that. Makes sense, considering what they are in the lore. But you look at the sisters, they're basically Flagellants, more or less. And you also have the High Matriarch of the Sisters of Sigmar. If you purify Morheim, get this landmark to tier 3. One problem that I do see with this is that you have Regiment Renown at tier 2 that you can't unlock once you get to tier 3. I mean, I suppose there's some sense in all of that, but yeah, just a bit weird, because I obviously built all of this, but yeah. So Maidens of Sigmar, Sisters of Sigmar, like, one of the problems that the Empire has is, like, actually having good line holders. Because great swords, yeah, they'll do a decent enough job, but they're kind of lacking. But then you look at Imperial Foot, that is a different discussion. Oh, and there's more, right? There is obviously more. Like Kurt Helbarg of the Reichsguard, Hans Zintler, the Regiment Renown Reichsguard leader, so Captain Hans Zintler, various other characters, including, yes, the former Supreme Patriarch of the Colleges of Magic before Guild came along and ruined his day, more or less. Another legendary lord, Arthur von Pretzen, Knights of the North Star. Like, it's just so much variety over here, so many of these small things that end up adding up to forming a really awesome picture over here for the Empire that adds a ton of variety. Is it relevant? I mean, you could argue it's not particularly relevant in a real campaign. I mean, even if you don't mod it, right? Because, like, you play an Empire campaign, a lot of these things are going to be unlocked later on. But that's a problem with Total War in general. Like, the early game is where it's at, the mid and late game just don't work. In fact, CA themselves are not particularly happy about, like, the endgame crises because, yeah, they just spawn a bunch of super powerful armies. And one of the developers, actually, was doing an interview. He was saying that the only one he personally likes is the Kastorf one because there's an actual objective there. Maybe play with that. But even so, endgame crises just are lacking, and they're not a solution to the problem. We really need some kind of scalability of AI, confederations of AI, all that to really make a campaign worthwhile. Maybe like not just a confederation of, say, Norska, but also a mega chaos alliance over here happening. For instance, you know, Archeon, Azazel, the Norskans, all that kind of stuff could very well happen. But yeah, so it is mostly fluff because of the way the game actually works. But fluff is not bad. Like, let me just put it like this. Fluff is actually important. It's important because it does give you that kind of variety that makes it so that campaigns don't feel too samey. That's kind of important because you can have so much variety, so many different armies in a campaign, modded, unmodded. It's like freaking awesome. Maybe there is a warband upgrade mod over there, but it's like, yeah, just lots of things to like with this mod, and I think fundamentally there's a lot of things that CA should literally take from this mod. In Romania we call it stealing someone else's business, basically. Yeah, I think this is something CA should do. I mean, they've done it before, but yeah, there's just a lot of really good things here. Go see and sign out. Stay tuned for more.